Before we dive in, let me ask you this. How do you balance chasing big career goals, raising a family, and still keeping your relationship strong? Well, today's guest is doing it all. I'm sitting down with Jeff Khadavi, co founder of Booksby, an innovative platform changing the way kids fall in love with learning. And he's a husband and a father of three who knows firsthand what it takes to build both a company and a marriage that lasts. In this episode, we talk about time management hacks, the importance of fun in dating, and why intentional love matters just as much as intentional learning. You don't want to miss this episode. So let's get it started. Welcome to 52, the podcast where we make balancing love, work, and life not just possible, but powerful. Whether you're chasing career goals or building a life with someone special, we're here to help you date, love, and live with real intention. I'm your host, Kelly, a former tech attorney turned dating and relationship advocate. And today we've got a guest who understands how building something meaningful, whether it's a business, a relationship, or a family, requires curiosity, effort, and heart. So, on that note, joining us today is Jeff Khadavi, a seasoned entrepreneur with a passion for creating tools that enrich our daily lives. Jeff is the co founder of Booksby, an innovative platform that brings personalized, interactive learning experiences to children through engaging digital books and activities. Booksby aims to make education more accessible and enjoyable for kids, fostering love for learning from an early age. Fun fact, I actually published two books through Booksby myself, one about my journey to the bar exam, and another for dinner on Fridays. So I can personally vouch for how powerful and meaningful this platform is, not just for kids, but for anyone, including me, who wants to share stories and values in a creative and modern way. Now, before Booksby, Jeff was the CEO and co-founder of GoTime, a mobile app that helped users find the best happy hours in cities across the country and was successfully acquired by Infogroup. From helping adults find the best spot for a fun night out to now building tools that help children discover the joy of reading, Jeff's career has been all about creating experiences that bring people together. He's also a proud husband and father of three, including a newborn. So he knows firsthand what it takes to balance building a business and building a life. So on that note, welcome Jeff to 52. How
Wow.
are you today?
Thank you for that amazing intro. I'm honored to be here. And thank you for the support of Booksby. You are an amazing member of Booksby's Authors Club. And I love the content you created. It was really super heartwarming. So,
Awesome. That's so cool. Honestly, we're so excited to have you today. And to our listeners, grab your coffee or your tea because today we're talking, there we go, because today we're talking about dating, education, fun, and what we can all learn no matter our age about becoming better partners and more intentional daters. So, Jeff, are you ready to dive in?
I am. Let me caveat here though. I've seen, your episodes and, you have some amazing experts on the show and it's really awesome and learn a lot. I don't know if I'm an expert. So anything I say is just based on my experience. I'm a student of the game with anything I do. So hopefully some of my 10 years of marriage experience, like you said, fatherhood, I was on the market dating. And so happy to share any insights that might be helpful to your listeners.
Awesome. We're very excited to have you.
Awesome. Let's go.
So, you've had a fascinating entrepreneurial journey from building Go Time, which helped people discover great experiences and fun nights out, to now co founding Booksby, which focuses on personalized learning and digital education. So, how has your career in tech shaped the way you approach relationships, whether it's in business or in your personal life?
So I'd say I don't think that being in tech specifically has shaped anything because my career could change. I could enter a different field, but I'm still ultimately the same person. In general, though, trying to be a high performing professional is definitely part of who I am. So in this case, we're entrepreneurs, just extremely demanding line of work, but it's also just as applicable to say a doctor starting his practice, a lawyer gunning for partner, a driven real estate professional. And so I think when it comes to relationships, it's just important to be with a partner who really gets you, who's really like a partner in, your career So like tonight I need to stay late. Daniela probably put the kids to bed. And like likewise, I'm a partner in her careers. I think just for any high performing individual, whether they're in tech or anything else, it's really important to be with someone who's aligned. And, it's important to kind of flesh that out over dating to understand, do they get the journey you're on? And they'll know that one's profession is a big part of who they are, which it is in entrepreneurship, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Speaking of time management and how busy things can get, running startups, raising kids, and making time for your marriage, those are really honestly three full-time jobs. So, what are some time management strategies that you and your wife use to stay connected through it all?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pulls in, time management right now, right? Like as you're saying, career, the marriage itself, the, fatherhood, exercise is important to me, friends are important to me, family is important to both of us. And so it's a lot different now. I mean, our first startup within our 20s. And so like at that point in time, none of that, a lot of that didn't exist. It was just like everything, like breathing, inhaling, almost 24/7 work. And now, as you mentioned, our startup relates with kids and content. So it would
Yeah.
be hypocritical to the extent that I'm building a startup for kids and kind of neglected my responsibilities as a father. So, I mean, time management strategies, I will say it's evolving, right? You're constantly going to have to kind of change and tweak and kind of stress test and kind of, figure out if what you're doing is working and iterate. So again, we're not perfect. Are constantly kind of revisiting and thinking about different ways to continue to keep the relationship strong while we're high performing professionally. Um, I would say each week, just the two of you do a weekly date night. I think it's a really important part of our relationship to kind of, even maybe during the week when we're just in it, we're so focused. Sometimes someone comes back from home, from work, and they're kind of still might be thinking about it. But like, we have that time set, whether it's a Thursday night, whether it's a Saturday night, and also just kind of independent time that we each carve out for each other. So she knows that Saturday morning tennis is important to me. It's a couple hours block. So she's kind of running cover with all three kids while I'm doing my thing. And then, when I get back, I kind of run cover and take care of all the kids so that she has time to herself. And I think that's also important because it lets us be the best version of ourselves. But obviously, being really deliberate about carving out that time for just the two of us.
Absolutely. That's amazing. With life getting so hectic, how do you make sure that the time you do spend together is actually quality time?
Biggest part of that is just carving it out, right? It's easy just to kind of succumb to letting life take you, or even you're tired, you just kind of want to lay on the couch and just like veg out. So just being really deliberate about making plans, getting out of the house, that's the win. And then from there, everything falls into place where it is quality time because then, you're catching up, you're talking about the kids, not with them right there. And you're kind of strategizing and you're kind of taking on that teammate partnership like mentality. Again, it's, easier said than done,
No, absolutely. But you're doing it, so
you
it's
know,
working.
trying.
And our listeners, including me, we really love to hear a good love story and would love to hear your love story. So, can you please share how you and your wife met?
Sure. So, yeah, it was kind of like the old fashioned way. It was a setup, through a mutual kind of family friend in the community. So, I mean, they kind of gave the lead, her mom, my mom, and then my mom sends me a name. And then kind of I do my, Facebook stalking at the time, and LinkedIn. And, I was like, oh, okay, she went to NYU. She works here. Saw some pictures online. And then, yeah, from there, it just kind of kicked off a normal dating process, went out to dinner, drinks. At the time, I was like 32. She was 23. So I proposed on the 1 year anniversary. We were engaged for about 7 months or 8 months. And then, yeah, I mean, we're 10 plus years now, three kids
Amazing.
later.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, that was, normal dating kind of process, kind of did dinners out. It was interesting, I would say, with our dating. I was really wanting to get to know her. And sometimes it's a little bit hard just kind of going out to dinner every night. Everyone has a drink. It's fun. So I was really methodical about wanting to kind of plan dates where we could actually like really get to know each other.
Yeah. So, how would you plan dates to get to know each other? How is it different?
So, for example, I remember I was like frustrated that like getting these snippets of time, like 2 hours, 3 hours over dinner. And so I decided to buy tickets to the US Open one afternoon, like the day
Nice.
session. And it's not just because I like tennis, but so we could actually spend like 7 hours together, like nonstop, right? At that point, like things happen. You miss the train, you get hungry, you might not be at your like tip top self. And so I thought that was an important part of our courtship to kind of just get to know each other and kind of get past just like fun little dinner together and really get more depth.
I love that. And were you looking for a wife for your person at that time, or did it just catch you by surprise, that setup?
For me, I was very deliberate about dating for marriage.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I kind of like compartmentalized. Go Time had sold. I moved back to New York. And so like, when I moved here, I was absolutely not looking to get into a relationship that did not end in marriage. For me, it was marriage or bust. Just, and also I think that's the right thing to do for not just oneself at that point, but also you don't want to waste other people's time. Like, what's the point of dating? And then if it's someone else on the other side. So no, absolutely. I was really deliberate about that.
That's amazing. And what exactly were you looking for, like in a partner? Was there a list that you had based on feelings, values, shared goals, or something else?
I definitely took an academic approach a little bit where I was like really evaluating everything, like almost a 360, obviously evaluating the person themselves, their relationship with their family, their siblings, their friends. Like, do they have friends that are like a revolving door all the time? Or, do they have long-standing friendships? Were they generally happy person? I kind of mentioned this to my friends when we're talking about dating, but it's like this percentage of the time a person is happy. It's an interesting metric. Like, are they just generally happy person, comfortable in their own skin? And yeah, I was looking for ultimately someone who's going to be a great partner in life. I mean, we talk about in entrepreneurship co-founders, and that's like the most important decision you make as an entrepreneur. This is like, your partner in life. So,
Yeah.
do you think that they'll be a good wife, mom, partner in any of your endeavor? There's one kind of podcast and kind of newsletter I subscribe to. It's by Arthur C. Brooks, and he talks a lot about happiness. It's like a happiness kind of newsletter and just kind of the science behind it. And he talks a little bit about companionate love. So it's like different from passionate love. Companionate love is love that really lasts over time.
Yes.
And so looking back, I think that's a great phrase. Like, I was looking at somebody who could be my partner in life. So I remember when I proposed to Daniela, when I got down on one knee, I don't even think she remembers what I said, but I said, I look forward to building a life together. So it's not just like, oh, this is destiny, it's just going to happen. Like, really a partner who you're going to build with, work
Work,
with.
building. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I was looking for. Obviously, during dating, you have limited data points. So definitely made it a point to like ask questions, to talk about stuff. I didn't have a list, but per se, but kind of hit a lot of the topics of her philosophies, her views on stuff, not just like having a drink and like smiling and laughing on the surface.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Was there a moment when you and Daniela, your wife, were dating that you realized, oh my gosh, this is the person for me? This is the one?
I think that there is a moment, probably 4 months into dating, where we really did kind of take a lot of serious topics and we went down about role of religion, role of money, like what are family, how do you feel about raising kids this way? How many kids do you want to have? And we actually just, it was just very organic. It happened. We were just talking. It wasn't this grand night out, but we really hit on a lot of topics. And I think the fact that it was actually really easy conversations, kind of going through each topic.
Like an intense topic, no
Yeah,
less.
or what should be intense topics,
Yeah,
but it kind of just felt natural. We're able to reason through each thing. You're not going to naturally align on everything, but like how well you can kind of talk through that. So at that point, I realized that this was really substantial. So
amazing,
yeah,
amazing. And I mean, people always say soulmates and whatnot. Do you believe in soulmates? Do you believe in that phenomenon?
I don't. If we're going to define soulmates as destined to be with one person in life, I don't believe in that for a couple of reasons. One is I don't think things are destined. I actually believe that you have to make your own luck, or I call it maximizing your luck radius. So you can't just sit home and just hope for the best and just like put yourself out there, go to the events, show up, talk to friends who has
Do the
friends.
work.
Yeah. So, so again, that's the opposite of whether it's destiny. And so I'm big on that concept of expanding your luck radius, not just with dating, but even with like business, got to shoot your shots. And so as far as, is there only one person out there for you? I don't believe that either in the kind of traditional sense. I personally believe that a long-standing marriage, like we're talking like 50 years, is to have a relationship that increases over time in terms of its happiness and fulfillment is a really rare thing, almost like an outlier, right? Statistically, we know that so many relationships even end in divorce, and even that those that don't, like how many of them kind of climb that trajectory where happiness goes up and fulfillment over time? Probably a lot of them level out, probably a lot of them go down, and obviously we know a lot of them lead to divorce. I think it's a really difficult thing to find, but I do think that people who generally have qualities of like they're compromising, they're upbeat, they're positive, have a bigger pool of people that they're able to kind of have that type of life with. It's not a big pool in general. You really have to find the right person that shares that with you. But I don't think that there's only one person out in the world who meets that definition who you could achieve that with. It
Right.
is rare. It is hard to find. You need to be really like methodical. I think the biggest decision that one could make in one life, because if we go back to happiness, it's kind of proven that being in the right relationship is probably one of the biggest drivers of long-term happiness.
Absolutely.
But I think if you end up with anyone on that scale where you can kind of climb that curve over 50 years, again, I'm only 10 years, so not saying I'm on that, or not saying we're there. I'm not,
You're on the way.
well,
Yeah.
time will tell, obviously. But yeah, I think if you end up with anyone on that trajectory, it'll probably feel like the concept of a soulmate. Not to say, well, are they the number one person in the world? Like maybe, or even if it's just that like 0.0001%, that'll feel like a soulmate. Not just, at least my view on how I look at things.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. But, when it comes to movies and social media now, everyone's looking for that happily ever after, that soulmate, that like perfect person for them. Literally checks off every box, whatever it may be. So, you know, even if they're in a relationship, they'll want to wait on proposing or taking the next step because it doesn't feel perfect yet, like that Hallmark movie or like that social media post they just saw. So, when it came to proposing, were you yourself 100% sure at the time, or was there still a little bit of like fear in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be a leap of faith at that point in time to some
Yeah.
extent. Because now you look at where we are in a relationship, we have kids, like we're battle tested, we've done so much together. Do you know with 100% certainty that like, I think people think they do, but clearly statistics show otherwise in terms of how it turns out. And I think that's okay. Like it didn't stop me, I felt really confident. I feel like I had, really evaluated Daniela and our relationship, ability to compromise, adversity, talk through things, reason together, seen her in so many different situations, socially with her family, spend time with her family. She's spent time with my family, my friends. So, but I've had conversations with friends who've expressed, wait, are you 1,000,000% sure? But like, I think it's okay to have a leap of faith. I think to some extent, there's always going to be a leap of faith at that point in time. And that's okay. Hopefully you've done your diligence and you have a lot of data around that. And you've been really academic, your curiosity. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I saw in Daniela that I felt would translate well, in terms of being a partner. Was I 100% sure? No. But now that I'm on the other side of it, many years later, I felt that she would be a great mother. But now that I've
You
seen it
know.
in so many ways and day in, day out, morning, like obviously it's just a different set of data that I have that I didn't have.
Yeah. Of course. And how has your relationship evolved since the early days of marriage, especially now with three kids?
You can't even compare. Like it's like, do we even know each other back then compared to like, and that's the hard part about dating. I mean, you're having fun, not a care in the world, you're doing fun things. And that's why, like I said, when I was dating, I made it a point not just to sit there and go with the flow. We would talk about these things like views on religion, views on money, views on family and stuff like that. But like, yeah, I mean, you can't even compare the extent that I know Daniela now versus at the time, even the day of marriage, where you're basically making that lifelong commitment. Not even close. Yeah.
So crazy, so crazy and so beautiful.
Thanks.
And now let's get into education and dating, how they mesh.
Awesome.
So, Jeff, you're the co-founder of Booksby, which is all about making education accessible and fun for kids. And you also have three kids yourself, including a newborn. So you're living and breathing this stuff every single
Never
day.
dull moment.
Never a dull moment, I could imagine. But here's the thing, we often focus so much on early education, yet so many adults are totally winging it when it comes to love and relationships. And, I say this as someone who has used your platform, Booksby, to publish two books. Again, one on becoming a lawyer, and another one on preparing dinner on
And
Friday
the one with
nights.
becoming a lawyer, it was the day you took your bar exam. It was
The day I took my bar exam,
a
I literally
unique situation.
ran. I ran on the highway. I had to jump out of the car on the HOV lane and run on the highway because there was a standstill.
Now
Like
you have a
the cars
Booksby
would not
to
move.
remember that day and memorialize it.
Exactly.
You know,
Now it's like totally memorialized. And I have to give a shout out to my mom because she's the one who said, get out of the car. We're
amazing.
running. so, so that was, now we have it all in a book. So thank you for that.
You can relive it
Anyway,
anytime you want. You know.
there's more to come. Trust me. My nieces are obsessed. It's not just me.
Oh, awesome.
Anyway,
To hear it.
so, so again, one book on becoming a lawyer, another on preparing for Shabbat dinner. And, if we can turn life lessons into books for kids, then why not do the same thing with dating? So, do you think we should treat dating with the same level of curiosity and intentional learning that we do with childhood education?
So I think this goes back to my view that this is the most important decision that one could make in their life. And it's the biggest driver of happiness. And that's been proven. And so it's absolutely important to treat it with the same level, if not more, curiosity and learning as any other decision. And so you want to arm yourself with as much information as possible. A lot of that even comes from speaking to other people, who are in relationships that you view as successful and understanding the ingredients of them. I mean, it could be as simple as like listening to a podcast about, really, I actually this morning, like during my morning workout, I was listening to a podcast and the topic was the DNA of an argument and like healthy kind of habits that lead to like reconciliation and stuff like that. And so I don't even think it even stops with even once you get married or whatever it is. Like I just
You're
think
so
that
right.
you should kind of talk to people, like we're talking about entrepreneurship and how important it is to learn from people and having advisors. Like it's very normal to have advisors for your startup. So,
For work, for school.
anything. Yeah. Like you have counselors, guidance counselors, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this bodes well with kind of your product and your focus. I absolutely think it's important. And for some people, it's probably critical to have some notion of advisory and mentorship to kind of guide you through, the process because it's an extremely important decision. And yeah, we diligence small decisions, so I absolutely think that it's extremely important to kind of treat it with more curiosity, more learning than anything else.
Love that. Love, love, love hearing that. And, with Booksby, you're building a foundation for lifelong learning. So, how do you think the same mindset could benefit singles when it comes to learning to date well or build healthy relationships?
I think whether it's a formal advisory, talking to friends whose relationships you respect, like I'm saying, with anything you do, it's good to model after people, right? So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you should talk to people who've done that before and kind of like understand their path and be curious. So I absolutely think that when you're talking about building healthy relationships, you should be kind of speaking to people, you should be learning, and then ideally if you have a partner who shares that curiosity with you, it's a good way to dialogue and kind of see, do they see eye to eye with you on certain topics.
Totally. And in all honesty, let's be real. People spend much more time researching what show to binge on next, than how to be a good partner themselves. It's just the reality of it. So, how can we normalize learning and self educating around love and relationships?
I mean, for me personally, and when it comes to dating and friends who are single, it comes in the form of just like being a good friend and listening them, being a sounding board, talking to them. you know uh, let's be real, like sometimes our mind could be our own worst enemy at times,
Yeah,
and especially when it comes
totally.
to decisions. So having that and being that for my friends who might be kind of going through that, because it's a lot of data coming in, it's a lot of stuff happening, you're talking to people, you're evaluating, you're analyzing, and it's good to have. I think what you're doing is great because I'm saying I'm doing that for a couple of my close friends, but you're doing it at scale. You're trying to give people that kind of more formal structure, that mentorship on an ongoing basis. But I think I normalize it with my friendships. If someone's just kind of telling me, oh, I'm going on a date and here's what I'm ambivalent on, like, to actually like lean into that and
Yeah.
talk about it. And you'll see that actually it's like, wow, like it's really helpful for them to kind of rationalize, even if you're not trying to tell them what to do and be prescriptive about it, just having that, being that listening ear, I think is really helpful. And that's kind of one way I just try to normalize it, not just like go on to the next topic and just kind of be there for them.
Yeah. Love hearing that. That's great. Your friends are very lucky to have that.
Thank you.
And let's rewind to your time at Go Time.
Okay. We're going to my 20s.
Yes, really good stuff. Good stuff. And Go Time being a platform that made it so easy to find happy hours and social experiences really goes to show how being fun and spontaneous can unfortunately be overlooked in today's dating world. So, how important do you think fun is in the early stages of dating and even in long term relationships?
So maybe I'll take a contrarian view. I don't think it's that important in
Ooh,
the way you may think, where it's just like you have to kind of fill the calendar with kind of over the top activities that are kind of outside the norm of what life would be like, you know?
skydiving.
Or
Hmm.
yeah, you know,
Like, we're going on a plane today. We're
or
going to go be jumping out of a plane.
if it's you and that's how you are and you are spontaneous, then you should, right? Right. Like I know a friend that during his courtship, like he picked up the girl and he told them they were flying to Miami for the day, and knowing that she couldn't do an overnight and knowing that she couldn't do an overnight, it ended up being a day trip to Miami. Like, and you know what? If for some people that's not who they are, that's like kind of disingenuous, but that's who he is. And that's all power to him. And I think it's great. And so you should just be you, right? I couldn't pull that off and I'm not that spontaneous to do that. So, but that's not fun in a way that is just like he was being real. So I think it's just important. But I think what's most important is just the connection, right? Like
Yeah.
if your connection is there, then other things fall into place. And so I don't know, a walk through New York City, like window shopping with the right person. So I guess it's just a different version of fun. It really needs to be fun driven by a connection. I think it could get lost in like traditional courtships of just dinner, and having a drink. Cause who doesn't like to go get taken out and have a nice dinner and then, go back after like a glass of wine or whatever. And that's why I was, very deliberate about kind of mixing it up and kind of getting that uninterrupted long time where things might go wrong, or you're kind of like spending several hour blocks where you're not just like someone can't just be on, and like they kind of revert to their realness of who they are. And so yeah, I think that's fun to me in terms of just one that's driven based on the connection.
Yeah. I love that you bring up that the most important part is having that connection. And even doing nothing with someone, if you have that connection there, it could be having the best time with them.
Definitely. Definitely.
So
I
I love that. And do you think couples need more tools to help them date better, not just match?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to kind of take the premise that the mind is a very complicated thing, and sometimes people's mind obviously works for them all the time, but sometimes against them, certain people probably need it more than others. Anyone could kind of benefit from advisory. And I don't think it should only come from a position of like weakness. I think, just like anything else, it's like a positive personal development habit, so 100%. I'm all for it and everything you're building and doing.
Thank you. Thank you. We're curious to know when it comes to physical chemistry in the overall equation, do you think people overvalue it or undervalue it? Like, is there anything I mean, yeah,
Let's
what are your
go.
thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Look, I
Like,
appreciate the
like, like,
question.
I don't even know how to
We're here to
like
talk about real
even,
stuff. So in terms of physical chemistry, I, short answer, I think a lot of people over index on it in that it constitutes too much of their decision. I don't think you should marry your fetish per se and not the sole driver, if that's kind of what you're asking. Kind of going back to what I was saying of like companionate love and, Arthur Brooks's kind of concept there. That's what kind of sustains love over a long period of time. It's obviously an important ingredient, but yeah, I don't think that in the grand scheme of the mosaic of factors, I don't think that it should constitute the most important thing, because personally, I think science has proven, over a 50-year period, that part of it will probably not be what it is those first, 3 months together, whatever it is. And so you better have a lot more to kind of, hang on to in terms of the connection than just that.
Totally. And now with dating apps, it's really been the focus of dating. It's really that physical, because all you're seeing is the picture. That's all you're really basing it on.
And look, I think it's okay to kind of be like maybe the initial thing that draws people together,
You need to have a little. You need to have a little. Like there needs to be
but
some
it
bit of
shouldn't
attraction.
cloud all the other stuff. 'Cause
I
all the other
agree.
stuff is
Yes.
really important. After that,
Yes. 100%.
yeah.
100%. No, good point. Thanks for sharing that. And
I
when it
love how
comes
we're
to
talking about everything here, you know?
we're not missing anything today. We're hitting all the topics.
Okay, I like it.
But the next one now is when it comes to avoiding burnout. For the busy entrepreneur or high achieving professional who's single, it can feel almost impossible to date intentionally without burning out. So, what advice do you have for people trying to balance their career with their desire for a meaningful relationship?
Maybe it's not mutually exclusive, right? So I am sure there's people who kind of say, well, I just want to focus on my career, so I don't want to date at all, right? So I think that maybe not looking at it as if this, then that can't be. Like maybe you should find somebody who gets you, like I said earlier, who's kind of willing to be a partner, who understands that you might not be able to go out all the time or spend, all the time on the phone because you're really focused on your business. They respect that. They want to help empower that or fuel you and kind of be there
Yeah.
for you. I think that that's really, I think that's really special, those type of situations.
So, do you think it's possible then to have it all in both love and business?
I think it's possible. I just don't think it's the norm, right? I mean, because each one of those is really hard in and of itself. I mean, to make it in business is really challenging. It's hyper competitive, no matter what industry we're talking about. Entrepreneurship, statistically, most early stage companies go to nothing. So you have to defy the odds on that front, right? If we're talking about our line of business. And like I already told you, that long standing 50 plus year trajectory marriage that goes up, I personally think is extremely hard to the point of being an outlier. So is it possible to have it both? Absolutely. It's just probably challenging. And in fact, those two are often at odds. Sometimes people who are really successful in business do it at the expense of love. So they are at odds, but it doesn't mean just because the odds are stacked against you or us that like, heck, we're going to still go for it. I knew that the odds were stacked against us in Go Time's case or even what we're doing right now, but it is possible. And, as far as I know, you only live once. So let's go for it.
YOLO.
Let's go for it.
So
Let's
true.
try to have both of those because I definitely think that with the right people and the right partner, it's possible.
Love hearing that. And for our listeners who are overachieving professionals, very career oriented, a lot of them are waiting until they make it financially. They hit that certain milestone before focusing on finding the right person.
And look, if they have
What do you have to
time
say to
is
them?
on their side, right? If like, if a guy's in their 20s, and like they that's what they're setting out to do, great, go for it. But like, let's just also
Oh,
be
later
real.
on.
Like in terms of age, like if you're saying that and you're like, I don't know, upper 30s and you're not going to even, you've totally compartmentalized there, like I would start to question that a little bit.
And
So
it's happening a lot, by the way. There are a lot of guys in their late 20s or early 30s. They want to wait until they've reached that milestone, that career milestone.
yeah, and look, like I said, personally, I think that there's something special and beautiful about someone being there, kind of like betting on you, right? Being there, kind of, so that it's not just like when you climb the mountain that they showed up, like they were there, along the way in the journey, and could potentially help empower you along the way and kind of give you confidence whenever you've had self doubt or whatever it is to kind of support.
Totally. And what's been your personal approach to staying grounded?
Oof, so staying grounded, I think especially the last, I don't know, 2 years, I've really spent a lot of time in this world of like personal development and understanding habits of successful people. Have to be a lot more efficient with time. Time's a lot more limited, like small pockets, because there's always just so much going on. So just kind of studying different techniques. I mean, exercise is really a cornerstone for me personally. I think that helps fuel not just the physical, but there's a mental component. There's a great book, Happiness Advantage, that just talks about how much that is a competitive advantage. So small things that I'll do to kind of establish more like a gratitude mindset. All kind of short little things. A lot of it I pack in kind of a 1 hour in the morning before anybody's awake kind of thing. But I think that definitely, again, not perfect, work in progress, always evolving, always questioning, visiting and revisiting and tweaking. But this category, personal development, personally, has just been very interesting for me.
No, totally. And you've built companies and teams, and now you're raising a family as well. So clearly you understand growth on all levels. In your view, though, what are a few behaviors or habits that people should build if they want to attract and maintain a healthy long-term relationship?
So, yeah, just generally having a mindset of teammate, partner in life. I think if you can kind of adapt that mindset, then a lot of things come with that, like just compromise, thoughtfulness, being a good listener. Um, Again, I'm no saint, all humans and stuff like that, but yeah, I think obviously, especially with so much going on, being present is a big one. Not necessarily like kind of falling into social media addiction when you're with someone and like not being there. That actually reminds me of an interesting happiness study that kind of talked about like one of the best predictors of a long term relationship. And the study was just observing people for less than a day, and they were able to kind of determine whether or not this relationship would be successful over time and like over a small window, and just like how is that even possible. And the way that they came up with a metric in terms of what they call like a bid. So if like just studying the communication among two people, that if somebody makes a bid like, oh hey, look, there's a really beautiful bird outside, and basically they were tracking like the counterparty's response to that bid. Like, was it a positive? Like, oh wow, that's really cool that you liked it. Like, what did you like about that? That's like a more positive engagement versus on the flip side, if someone's like, oh, anyway, that's like just dismisses it and goes on to the next thing, like would be a negative bid. And so just studying a couple for 4 hours and seeing the percentage of positive bids.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like curiosity almost, like being curious.
Yeah. And just kind of oh, yeah, listening, curious, thoughtfulness, just engaging and
Yeah.
stuff like that is just fascinating.
Love
But
that.
I was talking about being present. I think that kind of reminded me of that.
Those are great tips. I didn't know about that bit, when I
Yeah, I think
remember that
it
now.
was like the Gottman Institute, which like studies couples that have it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're awesome.
Yeah, I think I saw a TikTok about it or something, but I didn't really
Yeah,
even kind of
they're
go down a rabbit hole and actually read about it.
they're an amazing
Yeah.
couple. They're absolutely phenomenal. Is there is there any personal development work you recommend someone to do before they start dating?
I don't look at personal development as something to do relative to dating. I think that's always a good idea because what it does is allow you to be the best version of yourself, mentally strong. So whether you're on the scene, not on the scene, you should do some type of personal development that kind of fuels you, that energizes you, gets you excited. Like I said, for me, exercise is a big one, but there's people who kind of go to religion or meditation or yoga, journaling. I mean, there's so many techniques out there to kind of fuel happy, positive mindset. Because if you, going back to what I was saying before, someone who is just generally a happier person that has a lot of these qualities probably has a wider range of people that they could achieve this like really great long-term relationship with. So I would just say go down the path of kind of figuring out what works, what techniques, what makes you tick and makes you excited and happy. I think exercise is a pretty proven one
Yes.
to some capacity, but there's so many other things out there that I'm still trying and adopting. And along the way, even, has nothing to do with dating, just more life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it does come to dating, how important do you think it is to be aligned in values or religion?
It's another really interesting kind of general topic. I think personally with religion, it's important to be in the same zip code on certain things. I think it's impossible to find someone who's exactly aligned to the T. There's so many variations. So if like on a scale of 1 to 10, you're at a 6.7, like don't expect to find another 6.7. But again, I think that that's where tools like compromise come in. I mean, compromise is one. I think compromise is important for like a binary decision. So, like, if we're going to use Judaism example, are you going to keep a kosher household? Yes or no? It's one way or the other. I think it's just if you're in the same zip code, it becomes a lot easier to kind of compromise. But I also think it's really important just to be generally tolerant. So, using Judaism again, like if one person wants to unplug for Shabbat and the other person wants to use their phone, that's great as long as the people are tolerant of each other. Like,
Respect each other.
yeah, they're not trying to change each other as long as everyone's okay with that. So you don't have to align perfectly as long as people are tolerant and you can kind of work and compromise through some of the other things. So it's important, but I think some of those other tools that we're talking about are just as important too.
Absolutely. And speaking of like, zip code, what are your thoughts on marrying within one's community, like ethnically, culturally, or even socially? Is that something that mattered in your relationship?
So for me, at the time of dating, I was open to marrying within their community and also kind of dating outside. So in the interest of expanding luck radius and options and going back to my sales world, I had inbound leads and pipeline and all different capacities. I wasn't just centered like in one because for me, I was maybe more open to different things than maybe some other people. And if they are, like someone is set, that's great. And they know exactly what pond to fish in. But for me, marrying Daniela, who happens to be part of the same similar community, it wasn't about the actual community itself. It just turned out to give alignment in so many areas. So more broadly in terms of just like family, how both saw it as important to like spend time with each other's families, parents, not just parents and siblings, in my case, nieces and nephews, friends. And even in both of our cases, like we both had friends in the community, but we also had friends from outside the community. I thought that was really cool. And so for me personally, it wasn't the most important thing, but I think the fact that I married in the community was the function of having alignment in so many areas of life, which was kind of tangentially related to like being part of the same community.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up that you had advisors, you still do have advisors that you turn to when you need advice, whatever it may be. Do you believe in having a trusted advisor, coach, or sounding board to talk through big relationship decisions? I mean, has that been effective and helpful for you?
It has been, it was even during the time of dating, you know, it's important to have someone, whether it's professional or someone who just knows you well, right? And someone who can like, call you out on your BS because people over index on small, dumb things. It's like the second date, this happened. And one of your friends could just be like, dude, you're being an idiot. Like, that's nothing. In the grand scheme of things, it's not important. And so, absolutely, I think it's super important during a courtship, given how important decision it is even now, going back to modeling, people who are in what appear to be great, functioning, healthy relationships, like if we're on a double date, I'm picking their brain. What do they do? And you pick up really interesting things and you learn things and it can inspire you. So, we've talked about in terms of entrepreneurship. Before this, we were chatting about, mutual advisor we have and, the wisdom. I think it's important to have multiple people because you learn different things from different people. And if you have people that have, you know, are in positions and have been there and done that, have more experience from you, like, absolutely. Like on a double date at times with someone who I feel is like embodied a lot of the values, like I'm taking notes, I'm asking questions. It's like almost like a little podcast, but it's fascinating. And I feel really enriched and learn a lot and absolutely try to adopt things that I learned in the interest of development and getting better every day.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Absolutely love hearing that.
But it doesn't stop with dating. Again, it can go on even 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, It's still important. It should never stop.
Yeah, there's never an end point with growth. Never.
Totally.
Completely agree with you. And you and your wife, Daniela, have now been married for over a decade, have
Crazy.
three beautiful kids, including a newborn, and are both working professionals. That's a lot to juggle. So, what does your current day to day setup look like? How do you both make it work?
So I will say it takes a village, in terms of each other, but there's important people as part of the team. Our nanny is an important part of the inner circle. We both have families that are part of the equation, which is great. Like Danielle had a business trip, and I was leaning on her brother, her sister, and their significant others who live right around us to do drop offs, to do pickups, and I think it's really really helpful to take a village. But again, because there is like a lot of logistics. Even think about the morning, the chef getting breakfast ready, and we're getting them dressed, and there's a baby, and then there's two older kids who are rambunctious, and packing the bags and all that kind of stuff. So again, it just goes back to that teammate mentality, and quite frankly, that's part of the reason why I spend that hour beforehand, like the chaos starts, just to get mentally grounded, right state of mind, because like once it's go time, it's time to
It's go
it
time.
is. And so but you don't want to already start your day where you're like, oh my god, and thinking about this is frustrating. Like it's a privilege to be able to do that.
No, I love hearing that. And what are some relationship hacks or rituals that help you guys keep connected and growing together?
I think our weekly date night is an important thing. So our nanny stays later, one night a week by default, where she puts the kids to bed. So that's really important because that gives us the ability to just even do a small, quick dinner. We work not far from each other and just have a little bit of time, just us. don't have to end the night with just a logistical orchestra of three bedtimes, three bath times. So I think that weekly date night, we're not perfect about it because maybe she wants us to work out on a Thursday night, but then we'll try to make sure that we get that in on a Saturday night. So I think that's been really good. And then we do this, what I kind of joke is what I call our quarterly offsites.
What's that?
It's like businesses do these offsites where they get together, they strategize, they talk, they kind of take a step back to each other. And so during the pandemic, we've discovered how many amazing places there are in Hudson Valley where you could just drive 2 hours away. You're in like beautiful scenery. There's so many nice places with restaurants that are like some, I don't know, New York City quality, but in this like beautiful backdrop. And so, yeah, we try to once a quarter, we each take a Friday off. Friday morning we hit the road. Even the drive is like really great because you're just no kids vacuuming and like anything. You're just kind of naturally just talking, regrouping, strategizing. And then our nanny, stays over Friday night. And that kind of gives us one night. It's only 24 hours. We're back on Saturday, but it feels like a really vacation. I think that's a highly recommended kind of hack. It's cost effective. You're not hopping on an airplane, you're driving, but there's so many great places and you'll be amazed.
Wow, I'm definitely gonna ask for those recs later on after.
Oh, we keep a list and it's fun. We just got back from one. We went to Beacon, New York, an amazing town, amazing scenery, nice hiking.
That sounds awesome. And you brought up, you do your tennis mornings on Saturday, and Daniela, your wife, has times when she does her workout sessions at night sometimes. So what role does self-care play in keeping your relationship strong?
It's extremely important because going back to the view that some of the best people in relationships are just people that embody positive qualities. And so in order to do that, it's important for one to feel confident, to feel happy, to feel fulfilled. So, Daniela knows that I need that time and she'll carve out that time for me to have that. And likewise, I do that for her. And so yeah, it's not about a good relationship is not about necessarily being with the person all the time, 24/7. I mean, look, for some people it is, but for our version, at least, it looks like having time to ourselves as well, or even time for each other's friends. So like her girls' night last night I happened to go out with two of my high school buddies, and just to have that time. So there's so many degrees and variations of things that need to be accommodated. But I mean, absolutely in terms of one's best version of themselves, having that own time is important. Even if sometimes like I don't have a set activity, like I just want to get my life admin, like get my inbox cleared or like undo my laundry, like having time to do that I think is important.
Totally. No, that makes complete sense. On final thoughts right now, like basically rapid fire
Love it.
questions. From your perspective as both an entrepreneur and a family man, what do you think is the biggest challenge singles face in today's dating world?
In today's dating world, well, I know that the apps are kind of taking over the scene, and that leads to the paradox of choice, where having a lot of options might not necessarily be a good thing, where it probably seems like it's a lot harder to find your match with all these choices than our grandparents that got introduced to one person and just got married. So I think that's a certain challenge, at least for some people I talk to. Being realistic in terms of what's available, like just thinking that something's just going to fall on their lap versus they have to create that type of relationship. But honestly, if we're really going to kind of come down to it, I mean, probably the biggest challenge is one's own, state of mind. That if someone is not clear with their own state of mind, it's going to be hard to kind of attract the right people and to kind of be in that sustained relationship or potentially make uninformed decisions and maybe index on the wrong things. So that also goes back to the importance of having people around you that could kind of help you reason through this so that if one's own craziness, which all of our minds have to some extent, to kind of tame that and kind of work through that to make sure that as great candidates come along and you're getting introduced, that you're your best version of yourself and you're kind of making the good decisions to kind of end up in a strong relationship if that's the right
A-
person.
Absolutely. Great, great, great insights. Thank you. And for people trying to juggle success and love, what's one practical dating tip you'd offer?
I'm sure a lot of your listeners are super ambitious, and like you're saying, want it all with like success and love. But if you're really focused on being successful, I don't think it means you don't need to date, right? If that's what you're passionate about, like when you're on a date with that person, that person could be there on that journey with you. Talk about it with them, kind of see what they think about whatever business problem you're trying to solve. Can they add value? Or you're like looking like, wow, that was really interesting. So I think all the better. I know the Knicks season just ended, but I came across on my Instagram about Jalen Brunson's wife, and I was like, kind of went down the rabbit hole and read, and I was like, wow, they're high school sweethearts, like him and Allie Marks, and I was like, that's really amazing, right? Like this guy is right, like King of New York, pinnacle, like, but like back in the day, he was just in high school. They did long distance relationship when he was at Villanova. They really stuck to it.
Wow.
And he wasn't even in the NBA. He wasn't even a star at first. Like he was like a late draft pick. And so I love the fact that she was with him along that journey when he was just a good guy in high school and good at basketball. I think that makes it all the more beautiful, right? That like it's not like she's some girl who just showed up now that he's like this basketball star and signed this mega contract. That was not in the cards, I don't think, when he was even at that age. So, if Jalen Brunson can, manage a relationship that and with the demanding schedule of an NBA player and all that goes and the commitment and the work
Yeah.
ethic, and his work ethic is amazing, right? So, other people could do it too. So maybe you can't have it all.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love that story. And for founders and busy professionals already in a relationship or married, what's been the key to keeping your marriage strong as your career has evolved? What's that secret spark to keeping the magic alive?
I think it's probably cliche just to say communication, but sometimes communication is hard when you're so busy. And so I think really like
Yep.
establishing those pockets. And that's why like some of the things like the offsite in some ways become a forcing function. Like we're taking a drive together. We have 2 hours in the car. We're just talking about stuff naturally. So communication is, but you really have to be deliberate about building those pockets because it's just easy to kind of get swept up in just like logistics and day to day. And then you're really tired and you go to sleep and you don't have that. So some good forcing functions and same thing on a more micro level, like the weekly date night becomes on a smaller scale, a forcing function for you guys to communicate and connect.
Love hearing that. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff.
I said, still a work in progress. And I like listening to some of the episodes from your relationship experts because you're always
That
learning
means a
new
lot.
things from different people, different perspectives. And it's important to be a student of the game.
Totally. Couldn't agree with you more. And it's really honestly such a pleasure to have you on 52
Well,
today.
thanks. It was an honor to be here. Excited for your product. I have no doubt it's going to be successful.
Honestly, you're living, breathing, doing everything that all of us listeners aspire to. And really, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And that's a wrap for today's episode of 52. I hope you're walking away with fresh insights and a renewed sense of intention, whether you're dating, growing a relationship, or simply trying to balance love with a big, bold life. A huge thank you to our incredible guest, Jeff Khadavi, for joining us today. From launching Go Time, which helped people find the best places for fun nights out, to now leading Booksby, an innovative platform changing the way kids fall in love with learning, Jeff's journey reminds us all that the most meaningful experiences are the ones that help people connect, grow, and thrive. Jeff also gave us a real look into life after the wedding. Over 10 years of marriage, 3 kids, 2 careers, a rock star nanny, tight knit families, deep friendships, and yes, even Saturday morning tennis. He and his wife make time for what matters most with simple but powerful relationship hacks, weekly date nights, quarterly offsites, and a strong tag team dynamic. They're not claiming to be experts, but they are intentional. And that's the whole point. At 52, we believe that building a life with someone doesn't start on the wedding day. It starts with the mindset, curiosity, and effort you bring to dating. Jeff's story shows us how important it is to look for a partner who aligns with your values, your rhythm, and your vision for the future, and how having the right support system can make all the difference, both before and after you say, I do. Jeff, before we wrap up, can you share where our listeners can learn more about you, explore Booksby, and even create a Booksby book with their kids, like the ones I created?
Yeah. So
Again,
yeah, love those 2 books that you made. Go to booksby.com, BOOKSBY. We're all about personalized stories. So we can create a story about anything like you heard about Kelly's, day at the bar exam. And, I talking about the Knicks, I created one about taking my son Ryan to a Knicks game, which he loves. And now he has a Booksby to kind of relive and cherish it. I actually put real pictures of us from that day at the end of it. So yeah, we can make a story about anything. We've seen some really fascinating use cases of people making stories in ways that we hadn't even anticipated. And so you could create this like fictional magical adventure, one that's more based about learning, one that's, based about a real life situation, or like learning new things or new life events for a kid, like losing your first tooth, which just, happened to my son, lost a tooth and the tooth fairy came, or yeah,
Congrats.
certain things, or like breaking a bone, whatever it is. So we're still in our early phases. We only just launched, but check out the website, create a story. It's free. We could print it out. If you like what you see, you can edit it, you can mold it. And so would love your feedback, and hope it makes you smile.
Oh, clearly it does. It's awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
To our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to check out booksby.com to see how Jeff and his team are reshaping early education in a way that's personalized, playful, and full of possibility. And if you're in the dating stage, take today's episode as a gentle nudge. You don't need to be perfect or have it all figured out, but the more intentional you are, the more meaningful your relationships can become. On that note, thanks for tuning in to 52. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us continue to bring you real conversations with people who are building love, life, and legacy with purpose. Until next time, keep showing up, stay curious, and remember, you're not just finding the one, you're becoming the one. Happy dating. The content in this podcast is for entertainment and is not mental health, medical, or personal relationship counseling. It is not a substitute for professional expertise and judgment from a licensed healthcare or mental health professional. You should seek the advice of a qualified professional when seeking mental health or medical advice to obtain a diagnosis or any treatment regarding your mental health or well-being. The content in this podcast may not be applicable to you and your specific situation. Topics discussed in this podcast may include information that may be considered sensitive or emotionally charged to some people, and therefore listener discretion is advised. References to third-party resources are for informational purposes only, and 52 Inc. takes no responsibility for the content of those resources. This podcast is copyrighted 2025 by 52 Inc., all rights reserved.